You're probably wondering what this box is all about, and if you're struggling with grief and loss at the same time, I want you to stick around because this lesson changes lives. It's changed the lives of my clients and myself, so that you're not drinking dangerously this entire holiday season. I hope that this lesson helps. Throughout all of my grief processing, there was one lesson that really changed the game, and that is the balloon inside the box lesson. Here it is. If you see this box to start with, imagine that this is your emotional aspect of you. Every time something is touching this box, it's striking a chord with you internally. Think of it as triggers, or maybe those moments where you're reminded of the lost loved one, and you're triggered to cry. In the beginning, that balloon is touching every side of the box. You are incredibly triggered at every single thing that you hear, that you taste, that you smell, that you touch, that you hear, that you feel. You're extremely triggered all of the time. And what I want you to know is that this too shall pass. They say time heals all, but I think it's a mixture of time and perspective. Understanding that the pain will not always be perceived at this level. Over time, believe it or not, this balloon will start to shrink. And when it's a little bit smaller, it's no longer always in contact with your emotions, but think of it rather as maybe kind of floating around. Every once in a while, it might touch one side, but it's not going to feel as heavy. It's not going to feel as painful. Over time, remember, it keeps getting smaller and smaller until eventually it's that tiny dot. That dot is just floating around, bouncing maybe off of the walls, but not as frequently. And it's so small that it doesn't feel as heavy as that large circle. This is a great metaphor that offered hope for me from a therapist when I lost my dad. I was able to use that and look back at my loss of my brother and see, wow, it did hurt really bad. And at first I was so triggered by anybody that talked about suicide or that teased their siblings. I was extremely emotional, and I had to bring it up anytime I felt those triggers. Over time though, it became so small that I was even able to help others that were in that same situation. Had that balloon stayed so large, touching every corner of my emotional box, I would not have been able to be there for other people. But because I shifted my perspective and I allowed that pain to subside and shrink, I'm now able to deal with it when I need to, when the time is appropriate. But I'm also able to then step up and help others that are in this point of their life. If you're going through grief and loss right now, and this diagram brought some awareness to you, I want to also bring some hope your way as well. Know that if you're in the circumstance of the large balloon, having all of the sides touched and triggered with your emotions, this too shall pass. The more that you can remember that person for what they offered you and brought to your life, the quicker that balloon will start to shrink. The more you can recall upon the good memories over the negative memories, you'll allow that balloon to shrink. I mentioned that you have to give yourself permission to let that balloon shrink, because I've seen multiple people throughout my life actually live forever stuck with all four corners being touched, because they're not able to move past it. And we have to be able to move past it and accept it and remember the positives in order to heal and move on. One practice that you can start to further instill this lesson is to have a conversation with your lost loved one every day. Have a picture of them, your favorite picture, the most recent one, the one that you really remember them by, and tell them all of your wins of the day. Imagine having this conversation and use your imagination to craft what their responses would be. This sounds maybe a little fantastical, but you can actually create this conversation in your imagination so that your subconscious mind feels at ease. Through your intuition, you can actually be connected with them because they are spiritual energy, and energy is neither created nor destroyed. So as you're having these hypothetical conversations with them, you might actually feel some gut hunches of what they genuinely would have said to you. Beyond that exercise, I also want to suggest this book. It's called Past and Present: Keeping Memories of Loved Ones Alive by Allison Gilbert. There's a link in the description. This was really helpful to me after my dad passed away, and that's where I got the idea to start talking to him in the pictures. They talk a lot about how to keep their memory alive and what to do around the holidays, so I definitely suggest this one for anybody struggling with grief and loss through this holiday season. So if you enjoyed this today, I'm going to be hitting more tips and tricks from this book as well as others to get us through the holiday season with confidence and positivity. Make sure you hit subscribe and leave a comment if something was especially valuable today so that I can keep doing more of that. Until next time, remember, it's up to you to think different in order to drink different, or never again.